will host Prime Minister Modi for their first bilateral talk since Trump, of course, began his second term last month. The discussions are expected to focus on strengthening India-US cooperation in key areas such as trade, investment, energy, defense, technology, as well as immigration. Mother once again puts that into perspective. Let's listen in.
Multiple issues at play over here because the India-US relationship, while as to know the world's largest and the world's oldest democracy, as is of course the cliche, but the fact is that they have a lot in common, and clearly of course from economic and trade ties, from the shared security concerns and threats that the two have, as well as of course the tremendous opportunity that exists as far as the two countries are concerned in terms of cooperation. There are issues of course of concern as well. One of them is of course trade and tariffs, with President Trump having already announced during the course of the campaign that all those against whom he feels the balance of trade is huge, there would be proportionate tariffs that could be put in place. Now, whether he actually carries out that threat in the context of India remains to be seen, because when it comes to their own neighbors of Mexico and Canada, they've actually reversed it and actually said that this would happen only after a month. Of course, tariffs have been imposed as far as China is concerned. Today, there's been another set of tariffs that have been announced as far as steel and aluminum imports are concerned. Now, China and India amongst the countries that actually are producers of these. So therefore, what is the impact that it's going to have on India remains to be seen. Clearly, of course, India has tried to accommodate some of those concerns in the unit budget when it comes to, of course, certain US manufacturers, and that, of course, expected to benefit them. But will all of that be enough? And of course, India's own concerns when it comes to issues of immigration. We have seen how the opposition has tried to put the government on the mat and tried to sort of put pressure on them to tell the US counterparts that the manner in which the illegal immigrants were sent in a military plane and handcuffed is not acceptable. And that too, of course, is something that remains to be seen. Whether it's taken up officially, it's likely to come up, is what we understand.
Now, Prime Minister Modi also met with US Intelligence Chief Tulsi Gabbard. He congratulated her for being confirmed, as the Director of National Intelligence. Now, the meeting between the two leaders takes place against the backdrop of rising global tensions, including Trump's trade tariffs on multiple nations, his controversial Gaza peace plan, and his ongoing mass deportation of illegal immigrants.
India has also been positioning itself, as an alternative to global supply chains that emanate from China. We've got the PLI model. How do we see that panning out now, particularly, of course, with India also announcing its own economic corridor from here on, so on and so forth? How do you see that actually?
I think that's a wonderful opportunity because, President Trump has emphasized how he wants to actually increase the presence of manufacturing, in the United States and in India as well. We have been really working very hard to improve manufacturing. And I think there, in my opinion, actually there is significant complementarity because some of the value-added, high value-added manufacturing can actually be done in the US, and some of the more labor-intensive manufacturing can actually be done in India. And therefore, there is a natural synergy there that can be utilized significantly.
Do you see the recent changes politically in any way affecting the Indian-American community, sir?
So I think if you look at the Indian-American community, and this is where Indian Americans actually sort of not only distinguish themselves in the in the diaspora, overall global diaspora, but compared to other countries as well, the Indian Americans are actually, not only are they incredibly well educated, they're professionally qualified, and they're actually now many of the tech CEOs are Indian. And so the fact that India actually brings a lot of technical competence and professional competence is something that is really well established here.
So the entire talk around tariffs. Now, one thing is about political rhetoric. How serious an issue do you think this is that is going to impact upon India?
So I think, from the Indian perspective, and, you would note that the Indian budget, the recent budget that was passed as well, took some important steps in this regard. Conversation actually would be far more beneficial if it is looked at it in a more holistic perspective, not just focused on goods trade and that too on tariffs, rather than that actually across this 2x2 matrix, all the four, so goods and services and tariff and non-tariffs as well. I think that is where there can be actually a lot of common ground, in my opinion.
How do you look at this visit of Prime Minister Modi? We do know that Prime Minister Modi and President Trump had a fairly close relationship. There was a lot of bonhomie. We saw Howdy Modi, we saw Namaste Trump, take place. In the second term, do you think that this not just speaks of the personal equations of the leaders, but also how important US thinks of India in the larger scheme of things is?
Oh, absolutely. It's a very, very important visit, very important meeting. Now, Mr. Modi and President Trump, they're good friends. Twice in Houston they met. They also met in India. So there is already a good friendship. But currently, Trump is very concerned about tariffs. So there is still some sort of adversarial relationship, I would say, between the two countries now because of the tariff issues. So those need to be sorted out.
There's a perspective that while Trump has been very vocal about, for instance, BRICS countries, he's been very vocal about China, but once he was actually sworn in, the action on China was there, but he rolled back the action on Canada and Mexico. So many are seeing this as more of a positioning or a transactional nature, given that he is, at the end of the day, a businessman and a successful one at that. Would you say that this is more positioning, or do you think there is more to it that meets the eye?
Well, certainly it is positioning, certainly trying to get some leverage on this. But he has expressed concerns about unfair trade practices, and he has spoken about that. So it is important for Mr. Modi and Mr. Trump to get together, talk about the bilateral issues, bring out areas where they can actually help each other. In terms of, India is going to be the third largest economy in the world. We have issues with China. We have issues with Russia. And the aggression of China can only be countered if United States have a strong relationship with India.
Where do you see the defense and strategic aspects, notwithstanding just China, also going further?
Well, look, this is a very crucial time. China is getting stronger and stronger, getting more aggressive. They aren't following the international norms. So it is important that there is a counterbalance. And India provides that counterbalance for the United States. And that's why India is essentially very important for this, for the United States. But then it needs to have a relationship that is based on trust.
All right. I'm given to understand Senior Executive Editor Madhav Das Gopal Krishnan joined